In the world of mixed martial arts, legends are often born from talent, power, or extraordinary athleticism. But some are built from something far less glamorous: relentless will, stubborn resilience, and a refusal to ever quit. Today, we're telling the story of one of the most unlikely world champions in UFC history, a man who fought through personal loss, crushing defeat, and even blindness in one eye to capture the pinnacle of the sport. This is the story of Michael the Count Bisping. Michael Bisping was born on February 28, 1979, in the small English town of Clitheroe. His father, a former British Army soldier, instilled discipline early on. And from the age of 8, Michael was already training in martial arts, first in jiu-jitsu, then kickboxing, and later any combat sport he could get his hands on. But growing up in working-class Northern England wasn't glamorous. Money was tight, opportunities were scarce. And like many young men trying to find their way, Bisping worked whatever jobs he could: slaughterhouse worker, upholsterer, factory laborer, just to stay afloat. Still, fighting was always there, and deep inside he knew he wanted to make it something more. Before the UFC, before The Ultimate Fighter, Bisping was grinding it out on the local UK circuit. Small shows, tiny venues, barely any money, and yet fight after fight, his talent stood out. He was fast, he was aggressive, and more than anything, he was hungry. Bisping never considered himself the most gifted fighter, but he was the hardest worker in the room. By 2004, he held multiple local titles and had built a reputation as one of the UK's rising MMA prospects. Still, that didn't mean worldwide recognition. It didn't even guarantee financial stability. He needed something, a breakthrough. And in 2006, it came. Season 3 of The Ultimate Fighter changed everything. Bisping entered the house as a confident prospect. He left it as a star. With his brash humor, constant banter, and undeniable skill, he became a fan favorite, and sometimes a fan villain. Either way, people were watching. He stormed through the competition, eventually winning the 2F light heavyweight tournament. Suddenly, the kid from Clitheroe wasn't just a regional fighter anymore, he was a name. He was in the UFC. He was on his way. Bisping moved from light heavyweight down to middleweight, carving out a solid career. Fast-paced style, high output, excellent cardio. He was always in shape, always prepared, and yet something was missing. He was good. He was very good. But he wasn't quite breaking through to the elite. And then came the moment that haunted him for years: Dan Henderson, UFC 100. The right hand heard around the world, one of the most devastating knockouts in UFC history. It became a meme, a shadow over Bisping's career, the clip that followed him everywhere he went. For many fighters, that would have been the beginning of the end. For Bisping, it was fuel. In 2013, after a fight with Vitor Belfort, Bisping suffered a detached retina, an injury that nearly ended his career. The damage left him blind in his right eye. Completely. Doctors told him he was lucky to keep the eye at all. They also told him his fighting days were likely over, but Bisping wasn't done. Not yet. Not even close. He hid the severity of the injury, pushed through surgeries, and trained harder than ever. Every punch, every sparring session, every fight, done with one functional eye. Most fighters struggle to compete with perfect health. Bisping was doing it half blind, and he still wasn't finished writing his story. By 2015 and 2016, Bisping was on a quiet resurgence. Wins over CB Dollaway, Thales Leitz, and a career-defining victory over Anderson Silva in London. But the title shot? It always seemed one step away. Someone else always got the opportunity. The company never quite viewed him as a future champion. And then, fate intervened. In June 2016, middleweight champion Luke Rockhold needed a replacement opponent. The UFC called Michael Bisping. On 17 days' notice, Bisping had already lost to Rockhold once. The odds were stacked against him. Almost no one believed he could win. But Bisping did. He accepted the fight instantly. "This is my shot," he said. "The one I've been waiting for my entire life." UFC 199, June 4th, 2016, Inglewood, California. Michael Bisping walked into the Octagon a massive underdog, but he walked in with conviction. And with just minutes left in the first round, he landed the punch of his life. A left hook. Then another Luke Rockhold dropped. Bisping swarmed. The referee stepped in. Michael Bisping? The working-class kid from Clitheroe. The fighter who was never the fastest, the strongest, or the most naturally gifted. The man who'd been knocked out, counted out, and left half-blind. Was now the UFC Middleweight Champion of the world. Against all odds. Bisping wasn't just a champion. He was a defending champion. In October 2016, he fought Dan Henderson again, this time for the title. It was personal, it was emotional, and it was redemption. Bisping went the distance, defeated his longtime rival, and closed the chapter on one of the darkest memories of his career. By 2017, years of wars had taken their toll. Bisping lost the title to Georges St-Pierre, and 3 weeks later he accepted a short-notice fight against Kelvin Gastelum. It was too much. The damage was too heavy. And after that loss, Bisping finally stepped away from the sport. He retired in 2018, leaving behind a legacy that no statistic could have fully captured. Retirement didn't slow him down. Bisping became a successful UFC commentator, analyst, actor, author, podcaster, and motivational speaker. His book, Quitters Never Win, became a bestseller. His sharp, sarcastic humor made him a fan favorite all over again. Michael Bisping's story isn't about perfection. It isn't about talent, or destiny, or natural gifts. It's about persistence. It's about believing in yourself when no one else does. It's about surviving the darkest moments, injury, defeat, doubt, and still pushing forward a fighter, a champion, a pioneer for UK MMA. Michael Bisping showed the world that greatness isn't always born. Sometimes it's built.